Play the button. Yeah, there we go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jerry Mitchellike, and you're listening to the First Focal Plane podcast with Sean, Chris, and Rooster. Get some.
Get some.
Get some. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 72 of the First Focal Plane podcast, where today we can all truly say that Phil sent us. And if you still don't know who Phil is, then strap in and hold on to your panties, little one, because your ass is about
to find out. Anyway.
What was that?
That was Phil flashing in front of your screen.
Oh,
you should have been here earlier. All I'm saying.
Yeah.
Shh. That's supposed to be secret.
And we're worried about getting kicked off of Facebook for handling firearms.
Right.
Hey, the First Focal Plane podcast is brought to you, no surprise, by Odell Engineering. The geniuses behind the Canuck line of firearms. Odell Engineering is your premium importer and distributor of some of Canada's top brands of firearms, including Bergara, Rock Island Armory, Mission First Tactical, Hyperfire, and of course, the made for Canada Canuck firearms. Find their products and a dealer carrying said products at OdellEngineeringLTD.com, on Facebook at Odell Engineering Limited, or just walk into your local gun store and tell them Phil sent you. And if you don't know who Phil is, see my previous comment.
Whoa. Anyway, I'll stop doing that.
Yeah, okay. That's good.
Hey, Chris, do you want to get into the precision rifle game?
Do I?
Yeah. Why not hit up Shane at Ian Precision Rifles to get you a sweet Curtis custom action, an international barrel, an MDT chassis to spice up your life. Distributors for MDT, IBI, Curtis Custom, Stiller, Trigger Tech, McMillan. Shane will price it and Steve will build it. Take your first steps today by hitting up Ian Precision on Facebook, Instagram, and their website at emprifles.ca. Don't settle for mediocrity. So
don't ever.
Don't.
Well, don't do it. The First Focal Plane podcast is also brought to you by Volt Action Coffee. The brainchild of the call sign 66 team, Volt Action Coffee is selected, roasted, packaged, and consumed with uncompromising precision and attention to detail. Just as precision shooting is an art, so too is Volt Action Coffee's approach to producing world-class coffees for you to enjoy. Choose from their lineup of specialty roasts, including Overwatch, Scopes Up, Suppressed, Midnight Canoe Trip, whatever, and the once a year limited edition 11th hour Remembrance Day commemorative roast. Also check out Bolt Action Coffee gift certificates for the holiday season, stickers, hats, t-shirts, mugs, flags, and patches. Check them out at boltactioncoffee.com to order online or look for local retail stores stocking in your area. At checkout, use the code First Focal Plane for 10% off your order. Doing so directly supports the show.
Yeah. We are also brought to you by the Deutsch Chicken and Meatpacking Company.
What? Oh, that one.
They're at Jens's and they're making sausage. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Kurt is actually sort of joining us.
Sort of. He's here.
Yeah.
He's working.
Yeah.
He got his hands.
He's here in spirit.
He's elbow deep in meat right now. So, and we got to hide that. We can see Jens's nose. Anyway, he backs up. Okay. All right. Let's get into it. Hey, Phil, thanks for being quiet that whole time. We appreciate it. We paid the bills.
Hey,
thanks, how are you?
Believe me, I know about that part.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, you thought
you
we
still
lost
got me
him?
okay?
Well,
I'm still good.
Bills or
I think it's just Sean.
Internet. Go on, Chris.
Yeah, it's just Sean. Okay. Well, we obviously have Mr. Phil Odell here from Odell Engineering is going to be on the show. He's going to talk to us about all kinds of different stuff. But before we get started, I would just like to let all of our audio listeners know that there's going to be a lot of eye candy on tonight's show. And if you are listening to us by audio, we're going to be as descriptive as possible with what we're seeing. But if you would like to see anything that you are hearing about while you are listening to this, then jump on our YouTube page and you can watch this episode so that you can get all of the candied goodness that is Phil's face.
YouTube or Twitch or Facebook. So.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. All three. Or go to ffpp.ca because it will be on the website. So, Phil.
Sir.
What you got, man?
Well, we were talking last time about a couple of items that we worked on in Canada, and we worked on sort of in collaboration. Well, not sort of. We worked on in collaboration with Colt in Hartford. And so I pulled back a couple of the bits and pieces. And I remember there was some talk of some of the early flat tops. And it is kind of hard to describe. So, jump on the First Focal Plane podcast channel, YouTube, whatever, because it is not so easy to see. One thing, and thanks, I need to shout out a thanks to Ben Crete and Nikki Price at our place that came up with this cool 2-camera setup, so we can actually get a little bit closer look on some of these items.
It looks great.
Well, it will in a second, because you'll get this ugly face off and you'll put some cool stuff on the table here.
I like the brick, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just put that up today. Yeah.
The mortar is still drying.
Exactly, it is. So we're now. Everybody, please bear with me because this is the first time we've cranked this particular feature up. But here we go. Okay, there we go. We've got a second channel going here, and one of the things we discussed last time was the evolution of the flat top. After we had gone through it's a great idea to put a flat top on a carbine because this predated the M4. Canada was already in the business of designing and developing flat top upper receivers of different sorts. And this is not the earliest one. The earliest one actually had an internal dovetail along here, worked like crap. So that didn't last very long. But the one thing that it did allow us to develop, and it's kind of, this is an actual real one. So of course, no, you can see. I don't know whether you can see it in the I try to get the angle of the right along here, just below. You'll see a very fine line.
We do, yeah.
Okay, this is actually a 2-piece upper receiver. So the original upper receiver started looking like this. It had a carry handle on it. So we ended up cutting the carry handle off. And in order to experiment with this, we had a company in the DevTech group called Aerobond, and they made radar enclosures, and they have to be a Faraday cage for a very high frequency. So they have to be extremely tightly sealed. And the way they did that is they made 100% aluminum case, and then they used an aluminum bonding material that effectively joined the two pieces together so that they were like one. And this is exactly what we did here. So the original ones, they machined this and then they squeezed them together. What we found was they would bow. And so the very early ones didn't. Just
because of heat?
No, it was just purely the pressure. The goop was so thick under here that when you tried to press it down, it didn't press down equally in the middle. So what we ended up doing was we would bond on a rectangular section and then machine the whole thing together. And subsequently, the other thing we found out was that was an electrically conductive material, because when you anodize them, and you can see on this one, the color is very uniform. So it anodized perfectly as a bonded assembly. So then we would machine this thing together. If you ever see
one, permanent bonding, like this isn't.
Oh yeah. This sumbitch it's together. There's no question about that.
So just real quick before we move on, basically what we're looking at here is we're looking at an earlier design of the flat top receiver.
Yes, this would be a what would be a Canadian, more or less a Gen 2.
Okay, Gen 2. And what you were saying was you guys basically took the older style. Is it C7 in Canada? C7?
Yeah.
An older style.
Original C7.
An original C7 with the carrying handle. You chop the carrying handle off.
That's what it looked like right there. That's what it looked like before we started hacking away at it.
And then, so did that leave the receiver open at the top?
No, it not quite. There's There is a solid piece here, so we would just machine off here.
I see.
So that it was flat and it had a nice square edge, and we could bond right onto it, which is this piece here. And then we machined it all up because
basically bonded the rail on top.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was kind of easy early on because this particular part of the upper receiver is an index point for most of the machining. We found out later when we built our forging in Canada and we removed the carry handle, so the forging was only this tall, that we ended up having to retool how we made them. And this is one case where the guys in Hartford were smarter than us. They made their forging exactly the same as this, made it a little fatter right through here.
Okay.
And then machined everything exactly the same. So they could use their existing transfer machine, machined up the whole receiver. Then right at the end, they cut this piece off and remachine. And then they just chucked up a small fixture. And all they did was machine the Weaver or Picatinny profile and put the cross slots in. So one for Hartford being smarter than Kitchener on that one. We thought that it would be good because it was actually, from a forging perspective, it's a hell of a lot easier to forge this shape than to forge this shape, because most of the fallout in forging and a lot of waste, there's a big hunk of material ends up in the middle of this on the forging. So we saved a bunch in material, but in terms of the cost of tooling and making everything and having to machine it differently, the American, the Colt guys were ahead of us on that one. So, points to them. They did a good job.
Sounds like just a good collaboration to me.
It was, and in a lot of ways, it 100% was a good collaboration. But we were doing all of this, and we had come up with our tooling before the Americans and before Hartford really even thought about a flat top. So, Canada
Phil,
was miles ahead.
Since we're looking at it, I have a question about the rail. So it looks like you have pick inserts from the middle to the rear of the receiver. Why not at the front? Did I miss that?
No, it was actually the next thing I was going to say. And this is what calls this really Canadian Gen 2, because the C79 would fit right in here.
Yeah. And
this was kind of the optimal range for the C79. These are actually even slightly closer together than the later ones. Okay. But what they did is they had the range for the optic, but the Canadians always wanted a backup sight.
Yeah.
And that's what this single
that makes sense.
Right?
Okay.
It's the exact same shape all the way along here. And this basically became the 1913 or what is now the Stanag rail. There was a couple of adjustments on some very small tolerancing issues, but what is now the Stanag rail is still pretty damn close to what we have here and what Canada's had since 87, 88. We basically standardized the profile section of this back in the late 80s. And then the one change we then came up with later was to do, in fact, exactly what you said. And so, you're just spoiling all of my thunder.
Right.
Way ahead of me.
Our brains are working faster than your mouth.
There you go. And so this became what's truly the Stanag rail, because it's got the full set of slots. And then eventually those slots would carry on when the whole integrated upper receiver idea started to come forward, which again, the Canadians were very much leading in all of that.
But speaking of that, what do we call that style handguard? Is that like an A2 handguard, or what do we call that?
Which
that are on both of those receivers that we're looking at? Okay, well, I guess they're different. Yeah,
this is M16A2 rifle style handguard, or C7 rifle style handguard, and this was the original C8 handguard. Which goes right back to the XM177 and the 630 series of M16s in Vietnam. Okay, they had the interchangeable upper and lower handguard for the rifle for the M16 in the 60s. But because they had so many of the A1s and so many of those the polycarbonate left-right handguards, they just stuck with it. But when they came out with the carbine, they said, why not use the reversible handguard? So this is the exact same piece as the bottom side. So you take one piece out of, you take two pieces out of the inventory for parts and logistics support.
So, Phil, in terms of timeline here, the bottom, the M16 style or the C7 style, with the partial rail that hasn't been milled, or the original rail.
This one?
What timeline are we looking at for that? Like, when did you start working on that?
80. I'm going to say 86, because we had some for Holland and England. So the first ones we would have machined out would have been around 86, 87.
Wow.
By 88, we were to the full set of notches. So that's the time frame. And at that point, we actually had single forged upper receivers. And one of the ways you can tell the difference, I mean, aside from on this one, you can see the two clean sides. There's no forging marks or anything on those, because the forging marks were in the carry handle itself. So when we removed the carry handle, all the forge marks and traceability went away, and you'll see the very fine line. Now you have to be careful and look closely. If you have a receiver that has this kind of gap, it's 100% an early Canadian receiver. Nobody else did that. That's totally a Canadian thing.
Interesting.
But would any of those have been made on anything other than a military C7? Like they weren't put.
Maybe.
No comment. Move on.
No. We're 100% gonna comment on that.
Okay.
They would all have come out of Dymaco. And you can see a little bit in this one when we were learning. You can see the different color here of those three slots. That's because we've actually machined through the piece that was bonded on, and that's actually color. The metal to metal bonding agent there.
So what we're looking at there is in the notches, there's a discoloration because you basically machined
part of it
right
is
through,
because you remember I said we were getting a bit of a bend on this. So early days when these were being done, and we were still figuring out how to squeeze these things flat so that they would all work together properly. You would find every once in a while, just the way the tolerances worked out, you actually went through the bonded on rail and you got a little bit of the of material, that the bonding agent.
But at that point, I imagine that's just aesthetic. Like there was no functional problem with that. Yeah,
it actually meets the color spec, which I mean, you could drive a deuce and a half through the color spec on what's an acceptable black, quote unquote, black M16. I mean, the ones that came out of Canada were really nice and dark. They were black that actually looked black. The ones that were coming out of Hartford, and still to this day tend to, are almost a silver gray, and they both meet the spec.
Yeah, that's
where
very
it got
true.
Really ugly and freaking hilarious is when we first started making uppers and they were still supplying lowers, and you'd have this silver gray lower with a black upper on top. I mean, you know, it was like that can't be acceptable. And the government inspectors would come in and go, yep, that's fine. And we were unhappy about it. Like, as manufacturers, we did not like this two-tone that wasn't supposed to be two-tone.
Right.
I mean, later, you know, when you get something that's supposed to be gray or green or brown or whatever you want to make that so that it's different to this, that's one thing. But when it's supposed to be a rifle with a two receivers, you kind of want them to be at least close
and matched up.
Really different.
Well, and so when Dymaco came out and started selling lowers to civvies, I bought a bunch of them, and they all came with like that stealth gray the color coating on them, and like all my uppers were black. So I'm like, oh no, like so I had to mix and match. I didn't do any color changes.
We did have some of those because, well, frankly, every one of the lowers that hit the civilian market came through me. We did 100% of those. Yeah. But what we found is motor oil was real good, and motor oil would blacken them up quite nicely.
I may or may not have to try that with my non.
Oh, yeah, tried with one, or tried, you know, I mean, just try it on the bottom here and see how it
Yeah.
changes the color. You know, and you'll find something that will darken them up. You know, with your lowers, I mean, you can go right inside the trigger pocket and see what works. You know, that is up until we have to, you know, we're not going to talk about that because then I'll get depressed and cry and all that shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, where were we? Okay, so this was
Gen 3 now.
Thing. Yeah, Gen 2. Then what became interesting, and this is another kind of an ID point, using this little guy here. I don't know, hopefully we're going to figure out how good this freaking camera is.
It's actually it's showing really good right now.
Can you see the marks here? You see there's two little marks forged in there.
You can see what they say. Yeah, but
okay. Well, there's two marks on there, and most all of these receivers, if they're mil spec receivers, have at least two marks on them. And the one mark is from the forge house. Okay. And you'll see there's kind of like a stylized Omega in the States, which is Anchor Harvey, and there's a H, which is Hitchener, and that was the two biggest forge houses for Colt, and they would both have a C forged in them. And those things are forged proud. They're not punched in, so they're not a negative; they're a positive. So it has to be. You can only get that through a forging process where you're displacing material. So this one has the DevTech D, the stylized D, and the wavy W, which is Waltech, who was the forge house in Canada. And so those are the forge marks you're going to see on the Canadian ones. And
now,
they were
the Gen 2 one. I didn't see any. It doesn't have any forge marks.
No, because and I'm going to show you right now why. And that's a good question, Chris. That is Chris, right?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You can see. Can you see again in here? It's kind of hard to see there.
The grip there. Yeah, we can see there's something. We just can't see what it is.
One of these days, what I'm going to have to do is next time I'm going to have to get a super close-up camera so that you can actually zoom in on this. But inside of this pocket, and on a mil spec drawing, they actually identify where these markings are supposed to be. So this one is very similar. It's got the DevTech D and the wavy W, because this is a Canadian-made forging and a Canadian machined upper receiver. Okay. So that's one of the things that we have, and yeah, it's kind of cool. It's in our collection. But if you look at a Colt, you look at an early Colt Sporter 1, Sporter 2 from the 60s, you'll see a C and an H, or a C and the A symbol inside of here. And you can look up on the internet. There's some very good American sites, ar15.com and some of the others. They'll have papers on the various and sundry markings, because there were some of these that were made. Well, GM Hydromatic Division made M16s. They made some really nice M16s.
Really?
Yeah, they were beautiful, and worked very well. They made M16A1s, but these guys, you'll find codes for their markings, because not only did GM make spares, Colt make spares contracts, but other companies, and now you've got FNMI that's made M16s. And they will all have markings that code their forgings, and it's a really interesting to be able to see all of these. Of course, you know that's theoretical, because of course Canadians would never accumulate these because they're evil. So yeah, we're not actually seeing these.
No, this is all. I forgot to mention that everything we're seeing here tonight is all illusionary, and
there you go.
You are a magician, Phil.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we try. We do what we can. So anyway, let's put some of this crap out of the way.
Just really quickly here, the model you've got there with the full length, what we'll call the full length of the upper, with the
carry handle conversion. This one.
Oh, sorry, the one just
this
above
one in the back. Yep.
Yeah, the full length pick rail there.
Yep.
Fair to call that one your Gen 3, or did you guys have a couple iterations in between the partial pick rail and the full pick rail?
No, really, that you're correct. That's really the Gen 3 version, and for all intents and purposes, that's the end. That she be done. And that's the same. If you get an upper receiver only gun to this day, this is what you get right here.
You still get it with the cut and bonded.
No. This is one piece forging, but the geometry is the same.
Okay. I thought I saw a little line on it. I just assumed that it was the
actually,
same
I was
as the
going
Gen 2.
to that you hit on a point I was going to make.
Okay.
This does have a line, but if you go along and you feel that line, it's generally very sharp because it's a machine line. Whereas the other is a bonding line. So when you touch the line, there will be an actual extent of machining below the bonding line because we had to machine off all the bonding. This one is a very distinct line. It's not, it doesn't have a width like the bonding agent provides a width. It has to, right? There's a certain amount of material in between the what we bonded on top and the actual receiver itself. So that little faint line of gray tells you that what you had was one of these boys that was machined together. And they can be like this, or they can have all the slots, because the last ones we did before we actually built the forged dies, we had full length slots on here, and the spacing was what became Stanag spacing, so we were good to go.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So when you were developing this rail system, did you have any collaboration with Elcan in regards to their mounting system? And did you guys work synchronously, if that's a word?
Synchronously?
Did you work together to help develop this?
I'm glad we're on the narrow camera so you can't see my face.
Synchronously.
Listen,
it's a hell of a week, Phil. I'm having a drink. I'm making up words. I'm learning about ARs. Life is good. So
beauty. You're like an early George Bush Jr.
Only without all the oil money.
Mission really accomplished. Yeah.
And I'm guessing possibly not a Cheers squad member.
And slightly less cocaine.
Yeah.
How dare you? Anyway.
Okay, so where were we there?
We were just I think you were just putting everything away, and then I called you to bring it back.
Yeah, no. What was Sean's question?
Oh, Alcan.
Did you partner with Elcan?
Okay, Elcan's mount design, again, while being polite, was a disaster. The first one was terrible. The first one, we were actually betting how many minutes it would last, and none of them lasted a day with the Van Doos that had them the first time. They sent 20 guns down there. They got 20 rifles and 20 bags of parts back. The mount was terrible. That was the internal dovetail system that they had. God awful. Finally, they let us at least have some input on what the gun side would be, and so we started that. But their mounting was just it never got better. And
that's always been the knock against the C79 is that it's
totally
early generation mount. Even their mounting system nowadays, I haven't had a soldier tell me that they love it. Right?
Oh, fuck, it's terrible. Pardon my apologies. I'm not allowed to say that.
Well, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
No, I'm getting a little confused here because I was thinking, okay, we had this discussion, and no, I was actually talking to Dan Fritter.
Okay.
So
maybe that's why I'm following you, because I listened to your guys' interview.
Then yes, then you've heard part of this story before. I can tell you the guy's name was Peter Cheshire, and he used to work for the Brits with their optical sight design. And funnily enough, and this is a really weird, strange coincidence, I have one right here.
Oh, look at that.
So it's all prepared, hey?
Well, this is a second part of the discussion we were going to have. I'm going to get rid of this because
we're segueing quite well, aren't we?
Look at that abortion. Look at
Chris,
that.
you would have. You should. Anybody would think I paid you for these leads. You're doing a fine job.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
If you look at this with the bent upper, bent lower, the knuckle, the way this kind of thing goes together. Now, if you wanted to see the Canadian one, you'd basically take the mount and turn it around.
Okay.
Because
this
the
is the
British one, this is actually a SUSAT, sight unit, small arms, Trilux.
Okay.
It's a good sight, but it weighs about 14 pounds.
It's all in the fucking mount. It looks like. Jesus.
Well, no, you got to tell. There's a prism in here that.
Oh, okay.
It's a beast. Good sight. I mean, you could pound tent pegs with this thing, and it's like okay.
I mean, no offense to the designer who came up with that, but it kind of looks like an ACOG's retarded little cousin.
Yeah. Like a Trigicon ACOG. Yeah.
Yeah.
And optically, they're like nothing alike.
Oh yeah.
But yes, the external is similar, and I mean their rudimentary backup sight system.
Yeah. What's up with that?
Is that what that is?
I was looking at that. Like,
and you want to know what's really freaking hilarious? It's got screws on it because it's windage adjustable.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that's just post and notch, right? That's not a peep sight at the back, or is it?
No, it's can you see it there? It's
a little
the angles.
It's a peep
bad.
right here.
Oh, it is peep. Okay.
And a blade.
So it's like half peep sight and half post and notch.
Yeah.
3/4 of the way down the upper, so your sight picture is
Well,
I can imagine how accurate
you can pull this thing back a little bit. Where you had to really watch with this is you still had to be able to get in and operate the charge handle.
Right.
Yeah, because ambi charge handles didn't necessarily exist in this time, correct? Or they did, but they weren't widely
you know
used.
what? Shit, that's a good question, Sean. I'd actually have to, somebody'd have to go and check that. We certainly didn't have one.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't even thinking that far ahead because this is designed ambidextrous. If you put your fingers on here, you naturally operate the release there if you're left-handed, and if you're right-handed, you naturally operate it with your index finger. So this thing is in stoner land, this is ambidextrous, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Eugene Stoner, calm down.
Yeah,
not Tommy John Stoner.
Gene was a nut job, but I loved him to death. He was a great guy.
Well,
we got along well
to develop a platform like this in the early. When did he develop it? The early 50s,
late 50s,
late 50s,
late 50s, mid 50s. He started with the AR-10, and then they had, and there was a whole bunch of ARs. I just got one of his later designed shotguns, which is really cool.
Is that is it the 18 or something? Or?
Yeah, it's something like that. That
no, that's
shiny
18,
thing,
obviously.
Sorry, I think it might be the 17.
It looks like the Bronze Age shotgun.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I managed to get one a little while ago. All
right, sorry to derail us there, but
it's okay. So
that's the British system.
This is the British design, and this predated what they ended up doing. But the guy who designed this, Peter Cheshire, came over, and did he design it? I really don't know. He was their sales guy, but he was a technical fellow, so he was kind of a bit on a career track like I had, going from the technical side into the sales side, because the sales guys were basically clueless when they actually had to deal with a customer. So he got that job. So anyway, he moved over to Lights up in Midland and threw in the trash bag their original mount and came up with what was basically, like I said, this thing turned around, because the British one, this is their elevation knob and it's at the front.
Okay.
So that just rolls around, and it's a super simple thing. It's just a cam back here, but because it clamps everything together, it tends to keep the bits and pieces from exploding. The back end is where they put a swivel nut. So there's a swivel nut in here, and this is your windage adjustment.
Oh, really?
The Canadian windage adjustment is on the front with a swivel nut. So it literally, they reversed it. And then behind here, you've got the dial, which gives you your elevation. But the dial runs with a spring pushing everything up.
Yeah.
And so when the white metal that they made the production parts from, instead of the stainless steel that they made the trials parts from, gave way it stood there for a while. Zinc die cast doesn't like to be in tension. And it would go pong, and literally the back end of your scope would lift up because like 5 pieces came apart.
Well, that'll throw your zero out.
Let go. And it was a bugger. That's why you would see guys in competition. You guys had some military experience. The boot blousers, the little elastic boot blousers. Everybody that actually knew anything about that sight had a boot blouser tied around this thing to keep it together. And that was Corporal Bloggin's simple way of solving a problem in the field. and that kept his sight together for a while. And if the thing even exploded apart and he could clamp it back together with the boot blouser, he at least had a field expedient 0 for a couple of 100 meters.
Right.
So that was what was done. So this, like I said, this is the British one, which predated it. Then we got ours, which was a bit of a nightmare.
So would that be the same optic that would be on the SA80?
Yes, this is an SA80 optic. Yeah, the guy Don Geddes, God bless his soul, he's died now, was a sergeant major in the Paras, and he was the sales guy for United Scientific that built these. And I worked with United Scientific because the Dutch were looking at whatever we recommended, but they also were experimenting with the SA80 because the Dutch Marines, their deployment for NATO was with the British Marines. So they were seriously considering just going with common with the Brits. And, thank everything that's holy that decision got overruled, because that gun is a disaster.
Yeah.
The only good part of it is this thing right here. And the scope is fantastic.
Is it?
It's durable as hell. It's not as good in optics as the Canadian one. The original sight unit infantry Trilux, which went on the L1, had the post from the top. So if you had a target out there, here's Buddy the target. We're just going to call Buddy you would find your target, drop that down, bang, and you would solve the problem. Buddy would drop dead. And if Buddy was further away, you could super elevate, right? Easy thing. Okay. Well, when they changed to this thing, they went to what the Brits infantry called the Washington Monument. So now they've got this big Jesus monument. I'm trying to get the angle like that. I love the hand, and it's huge, it's right? Awesome. And so you got the target here. You bring this thing on to the target.
Yeah.
You bring it on to the target. Well, now you're covering, and you try to super elevate. You're covering more and more of the target. And if you've got a small piece of target, or you're trying to aim off for wind at a long range, it becomes a bit of a bugger.
Pain in the dick. Chris, literally imagine the silhouette of the Washington Monument in your optic. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's huge.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. It gives you a nice 16 MOA,
Well, it comes to a tip. And one of the reasons they use that, and it's a very, very valid reason, is that all of their jungle fighting guys in El Salvador at the school and out in Malaya and Burma, where they were fighting commies, or maybe that's not a politically correct word. Anyway, they were fighting.
It may not be politically correct, but it is correct.
With different political views. All the guys in the field wanted a huge sight because it picked up very quickly. And it does. It picks up super fast. But the problem was the original one they wanted picked up fast had the pointer from the top. And well, next time we do this, remind me, I will go find the original. I've got a couple of the optics that were out of the early optics trials with the EM2 and the pencil sight. And you'll notice that one, also the pointer comes from the top.
Okay.
So it doesn't obscure the target. Because rarely do infantrymen have to worry about shooting or at things that are coming at them from above. Most infantry threats are from the ground. And so every time you mask something that masks the ground in front of you, it's actually not a good thing.
True. But back to those goofy iron sights, like why would they have those on that? Like,
because it was a requirement.
So you literally have to get a cheek weld to see those iron sights. Did anyone ever use them? Did you ever have to?
They do work for a short distance. I mean, if somebody, if somebody put a round through your optic, you've got bigger problems because you were probably looking through it at the time.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's a requirement, and even the Canadian ones. If you look at the Canadian ones, that the rubber cover has little knobs molded in it, front and rear.
Yep.
They're the same thing. They're a backup sight, and the back ones, because it's molded, the left side is over one side and the right side is on this side, so they could get the mold apart, because if they were together, you can't get the piece in the middle. So they molded them offset slightly with a little gap in the middle, and they molded a little pimple on the front here. And that was our backup sight, because again.
But then why add the rear iron sight to the notch in the front then?
Because it's the forward assist of the optics. It's
Pretty
the
much.
same.
Well,
it was a
we're not
requirement,
working
so they
like
put
it.
it
We're
in.
not shooting a shotgun. And I mean, all joking aside, and one should never stop joking about these things because they are that funny. But all joking aside, they do actually give you some semblance of an ability to aim in an emergency.
Mhm.
And that was the idea. 100 yards in, can you hit something? 50 yards in for sure. You could absolutely, you could make somebody walk funny with them from 50 yards in. And
Right.
most of the guys who are pretty good
Make someone
could hit
walk
something
funny.
at 100 yards.
I'm going to start using that more often.
I'm here for
I
you.
made that deer walk funny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, right on. All right, let's get back to her.
You haven't
Sorry for
seen
the
my video
derailment.
of my bear hunt, obviously.
Obviously not.
Oh, you got to look that up. Line of Sight TV. Phil and Ben go bear hunting.
Oh, there you go.
Is that on YouTube or?
I don't. It's on Wild TV right now, but it keeps on. It's being replayed, and eventually it will be available wider. But yeah, it was a hoot. How funny was it? My old shooting instructor, Keith Cunningham from Milcon, I get an email. Keith sends about, whether he needs to or not, 2 emails a year. And he sent me an email and he said, I was watching this show and it was real fun. And and then all of a sudden I recognize one of these hunters. Nice shot, buddy. And that's it, because it really was done. So anyway,
And it's on Wild and it's called Phil and Ben Go Bear Hunting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had fun. So
Nice.
Anyway, back to this thing. I don't know if I can take this off.
Is that another Gen 2 receiver there?
Maybe. Bear with me. This thing hasn't even been out of the closet in probably 15 years.
Just while you're doing that, Dave Tree made a comment here. He said, and they wear down being rubber. Those backup sights were rubber?
Yeah, that's what I said. It's a molded part of.
Oh, I missed that part.
The Canadian one has a rubberized armored cover, which is mainly meant to cushion the optic module. And for that, it does a good job. But yeah, part of that rubberized piece is the molded iron sights. So I don't know whether you're supposed to just kind of like twist the rubber to get a windage adjustment or what. It's basically useless. So
just heat it up and push it to the left.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. So okay, so that slides off. Okay, now
there you go.
Here we have a fun moment that we did talk about a little bit last time. If you look at that, and you look at, I don't know if we can.
So for our audio, people are still on
I'm
audio.
new at this shit.
Yeah.
Okay, we're holding up. I'm trying to hold the end, but it's really, really hard to see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I have to pull them back to get some kind of focus.
What are we looking at?
Maybe can we get it? It's really, geez, I'm super sorry. I'll have to work on the lighting.
Well, we can still see some stuff.
Everybody's fairly familiar with what a Weaver rail is. It's that 5-sided rail. It's got 2 unders. It's a diamond shape, flat top. Well, the British used a different system, and it was called a Rarity Rail, Royal Armament Research and Development Establishment. So you'll see Rarity used in a bunch of things, and it's their development establishment that they have. Well, they came up with a rail, which is basically a very conventional type of dovetail. And in fact, it works probably really better than ours, because there's less chance of screwing up, because there's so many ways you can, on a standard 5-sided Weaver style, Picatinny style rail, that you can actually clamp a ring on it. And so they don't return to zero as absolutely as a dovetail does. So this particular unit is a dovetail, and you can see, well, I guess the people listening can't see, but we can see a very nice, distinct little gray line along there. And this is where this is a glued together receiver.
Right.
And you can see, again, the separation of the cross slots for the optic with the cross slot for the backup sight. And this was built for the Brits.
How is that conducive to success? Like gluing on two parts for an optic system. Like how does that work?
Really well.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Well,
early
once
days,
it's there, it's there, right? Like, it's not going to move
yeah.
around.
Oh,
Yes,
but this thing, you got to remember that this was designed for bonding together radar boxes that went in fighter airplanes. So this thing was taking massive G's and sustained G's.
So-
and we had to test it to see if it would take the sharp G's that we were supporting.
Right.
We were putting it through in a gun system, and it came through like a champ. Like this.
We're not talking about Elmer's wood glue here.
Oh God,
Gorilla Glue.
this is really high tech stuff.
Yeah.
That Aerobond had developed.
So I think the angle you've got,
effectively one piece.
I think the angle you've got right now, I can kind of see it. What you were saying before, this Rarity system, you were saying that it's kind of almost like a Picatinny and a dovetail in one system.
Well, it's got the slots of the Picatinny.
Yeah.
And it does technically have a slight break edge on the dovetail, but the break edge on the dovetail is really more to provide a clearance for the dovetail that's machined into the optic that's sliding on here. So that it's the dovetail is not sharp, so that when you're talking about the inside, excuse me, when you're talking about the inside of the pieces on the rail, they're stronger because they can radius those corners.
I got you.
That's really why it's done. It is a dovetail, and it's a good one. It's strong. The dimensions are really good. Its return to zero is excellent. It is a good piece of kit. And we built this initially for the Dutch trial to so that the SUSAT site could participate on equal terms, because otherwise the only way it participates is you're putting some kind of adapter junk on here and lifting your scope up, or worst case, you're putting one of those goofy optics mounts in here, which they had, and that was how they were going about it.
In the carrying
but you
handle.
can imagine, you take this 2-pound sight,
So,
stick it up here. It's
for the audio listeners,
ridiculously
he's
off.
putting the old British optic on top of a carry handle, and it's just as ridiculous as
It looks.
sounds.
Yeah, it looks like you should just hold it by the barrel and hit someone with it. It's an axe.
Yeah. It's not the best way to take over the neighboring country.
So if that Rarity rail system is
This one here, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, why don't we see that more often? It's just like Americans went with Picatinny, so that's what proliferated, or
Why didn't we have the 280 in the 50s and we had the 308?
well,
Because the
that's another
Americans
good
said
question.
we're going to have this. Get
Yeah.
out of the way.
Yeah.
And they're 50% of NATO. So they kind of swing an oversized axe when they decide. That's why we ended up with the NATO small caliber in the early 60s of the 223.
So better doesn't matter. It's what they wanted, and that's what it went with. That's what became popular.
Zero question. You cracked the code there, brother. That's how a lot of military procurements for large armies go, which is why places like SOCOM began to exist. Why Crane in Indiana?
Mhm.
Why is the one state that's furthest from any salt water got the naval special weapons? Because they're developing guns, and there's a bunch of good people around it.
Right.
It has nothing to do with salt water. These ideas and the 280 and the bullpup, all of that stuff, it died the death of the not invented in the good old US of A.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, let's call a spade a shovel. They'll eat their own children too. Why did the AR-10 and the M16 not get a better play in the early 60s? Because they didn't come out of the Rifle Steering Committee, and they didn't come out of Dover, New Jersey.
It wasn't made by the popular kids.
Yeah, exactly. It was made by some upstart that might have pissed some people off because he came out with some home truths.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that happened.
Why
But
is
this
the
is a
airplane
brilliant
company
thing.
making guns?
Yeah. And this thing actually ended up selling a lot of Canadian gear to the UK Special Forces,
Mhm.
because a small unit just close to the Wales border got some of these things and went, "Oi, this works."
Now they don't use that system anymore either, though, right? Like the L85, for example, like it doesn't have it has a standard pick rail on it, or
No, it still uses this thing. And
Oh,
it
really?
still uses a SUSAT. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But the UK Special Forces and extensions of the Special Forces and basically every British unit that can figure out some way to make themselves special are buying Dymaco Colt Canada integrated upper receivers.
Yeah.
And they've now all gone to the Picatinny or NATO rail, and that's just the way it worked out. And this thing will in time be relegated to the history books, and it'll be a footnote and stuff. This particular unit, this piece here, which was in various and sundry trials and such, never even made it into the various books. You can read Black Rifle and Black Rifle 2, and I tried to reach out to the guy because I had this and some other things. And I guess I wasn't good enough. So you guys are seeing it, and you're scooping the entire world by actually being the first ones, as far as I know, the first ones ever to have this in any form of media.
Screw those guys.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you guys are interested. You actually ask good questions.
Well, we are interested.
Yeah, definitely.
It's cool shit. This should be taught in school, Phil.
That's right. And
before
the little potato got rid of all my fun guns, this was my life. I loved ARs. This was my jam. And
me too, man.
So now I have thousands upon thousands of dollars sitting in a safe that I can't use. So this just fascinates me. But anyway, now one thing
would you like to buy a business inventory?
yeah, exactly.
So win the lottery first.
Now,
like I said, this is a very cool piece that I have tried to get people to look, and nobody. You guys are the first ones that were actually smart enough to recognize what this was, and where it fell, because this did have this little guy here. Really was the beginning of Colt Canada Dymaco at the time in the Special Forces world when they pulled this thing out, and the first ones really were like these because they liked the rifle and it worked, and they could put their kite, and more importantly they could put their maxi kite on this thing, and then they could see at night, because that was a pretty fine piece of night vision gear. And it gave them a massive advantage in certain places that are really close and slightly west of England, and that helped. Again, thinking the time frame we're in is late 80s, just prior to the Gulf War, and it really turned a tide on a whole bunch of things in there, because it put a lot of pressure on some people to get to the peace talks. And
are you talking about the northern part of an island that neighbors England?
There you go. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm just like, wait, he could be talking about one thing, but he could be talking about something else. So
suddenly Ireland is the island that shall not be named.
Yeah, the island to be named later.
Yeah,
and you can, and you're underlining this by Odell Engineering. Yeah, that's a good Welsh name. Yeah, it can't be Welsh. It's got a vowel.
Okay. So Phil, with this rail system, with the proprietary British system, I'm going to call it, because I'm still not well versed on the name, the nomenclature, the Rarity system. There you go. So, did the Danes or the Dutch buy this, or did I miss, or did they go with the 1913 pick?
They went with they all went with the pick rail, which was being standardized.
Okay.
And
the Brits stood alone.
It did, and it served a purpose. And if you think about how many tens of millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars in work that have come into Kitchener, because UK Special Forces had this thing and fell in love with the guys who built it and the guys who supplied it to them. And so, this was, if there was one thing that you could put on a table and say, what put Dymaco on the special operations table, that part right there. And you are the first guys that have actually been smart enough to have it on TV.
Well,
nobody else ever caught on to it.
Well, Phil, we, all jokes aside, we sincerely appreciate the opportunity, and this is huge news to me. This is amazing. Like, I've never seen that upper rail. Like, I've never seen something like that ever.
It's not like I've tried to hide it. Like I said, Chris Bertoli, I talked to him. The only guy who's actually been smart enough that he says, I want to get this thing, and then he got sick, and then we got COVID, was Larry Vickers. Larry is absolutely crapping his drawers to get hold of one of these things, and unfortunately, that's it, and he ain't getting it.
So we've scooped Vickers.
But I sent him pictures, and Larry's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, to the extent that he's like, he's going back in his old Delta memory and he's going, I remember the Brits. And it's like,
Yep.
they were the
Yep.
guys and we had this thing for them. And,
that was right around the same time of his heyday in Delta.
Yeah. Well, this was all they went into the Gulf with some of the SAS guys.
Panama, didn't they? I think we're British.
Panama was mostly the Americans.
Okay. But British Special Forces
the Brits
probably
did a few other things with it, but it was before they then changed, and so it became simpler. It became simpler for them to buy all of these and have their kites converted to a Picatinny base, which for the guys in England that were making the kite wasn't a bad thing because it actually gave them an international market for that site as well. So it was a win-win all around. The only thing that lost was, unfortunately, the British government and their Rarity Rail.
How long did they?
Thing, so they didn't care. They were still going to get paid.
How long did the Brits even use this rifle?
Which one?
Like the M16, M4.
They're still using it.
Yeah, they still are.
Yeah. In 1986, they had officially bought, I think it was 1,100 M16A2s, and that's when I went to Hereford and started talking about the things we were doing, and I discovered somewhat later that the British equipment specialist was basically terminated the afternoon after I left because he had told them they'd asked about the Canadians, and he had told them, yeah, it's just another M16, it doesn't matter. And then I came in with like 1,001 reasons. Well, not 1,001, but probably 6 or 8 solid reasons that it was very interesting to the UKSF. And then subsequently on another trip, I came up with one reason, which I'm not going to share. But it gave them all the excuse they ever needed to buy as many of these as we could ship to them. And they did. They bought a pile of them.
For Special Forces only, Chris. It wasn't issued to standard infantry.
Oh, hell, it wasn't even issued to standard Special Forces. It was a very, very cloistered group of people that had this thing at the time.
Gotcha.
Like we're talking high-end SAS, correct?
Yes.
Like Special Air Service, yeah.
Yep.
Got it.
So
Okay.
Without getting too into OPSEC, but anyway.
Well,
awesome.
Do you have any more show and tell, Phil, or should we move on to some of your other stuff? Or
well, it depends. I mean, one of the things you guys had also asked about before was when we started the original M4 idea, and that we were when I was down in Hartford and we were farting around with these things, and this. Hi, we're back on the big screen. You can see the whole upper receiver here that I've got, and this is what we would call a C8 upper receiver, the original
pencil
C8
barrel.
Yep. It's I think it's a Colt 725 is the model. I think 715 is the C7 in Colt speak. But yeah, it's the narrow barrel. It's got the full carry handle, and yeah, the very slimline barrel. Shorter sight radius. So when we started up in Canada, like I said, the very first thing, as soon as I saw the flat top, and everybody's like, oh yeah, doing this, doing that, doing this, rifle. And I went, the hell with that. I did that. And now ignore the barrel because it was still the standard C8 thin barrel. But now it's got a flat top. It's got effectively the same barrel length as the C7 because you're only losing about 200 feet per second for the last 4 inches of barrel.
Right.
So you had everything good without the weight, without the length. So now, and of course, remember, you also had the sliding stock on the back end, so you could make the back end smaller.
Right.
So we were winning all around with this thing, except for the various and sundry old fogies who said, you can't do that.
Watch it.
And we went, well, here it is. And
when did you guys get rid of?
They went nuts.
Sorry, when did you guys get rid of the front sight gas block, or did you right away?
Never did.
Never did.
On here, right? Because again, there's always a requirement for backup sight,
Yep.
So, and this is an oddball. Oh yeah, somebody's machined the bayonet lug off of this one, so ignore that. This is a slightly later one. You can see this has the grenade launcher profile barrels. So, well, the M203, the short barreled 40 by 46 LP firearm that goes under here.
Right.
This is set up for that, which was the next phase in the what became the M4. And we talked about the United Arab Emirates last time, I think, and they had sent an order. Well, the rep there said, here's wonderful news. I've sold 70,000 carbines. And everybody goes, "Woo, excellent." Better news. I've sold 70,000 grenade launchers. And everybody goes, "That's awesome." And he said that I told them that they'd go on the carbine. And they went, "Huh?" Because the original one, it won't fit. The M203 will not fit on that barrel.
Right.
So we're all kind of sitting down in Hartford, and that's when this configuration of barrel came into being with this spot, because it would then take the front of the M203 would go on there, bolt in place, and then it would fit on there. Right. So
you had to do that after the order was placed.
Well, in order to place to accept the order at the factory, they at least had to have some idea how we were going to do this, and that they weren't going to lose their shirt on it. And as it turned out, they did not even come close to losing their shirt. They made a mint on that order, and
70,000 units is no joke.
No, it was really it was good. That was a good that kept the factory going for 2, maybe 3 months down in Hartford.
Wow.
Well, to give you an idea of the capacity in the old Hartford plant, the first time I went down there, I'm standing on their barrel line and I'm looking at the barrels, and I'm looking at all the various barrels in process, from finished barrels to blanks. And in process, they had enough barrels and blanks to do the entire Canadian first contract.
Holy crap.
Wow.
And that's on one run.
No, it was in process, right? So it was multiple lots going through, but their work in process from this is a barrel blank to this is finished, and all the various stages in between, gun drilling, chambering, honing, rifling, they had 100,000 blanks from blank to finished barrel sitting right there on the floor.
Wow.
Which was 115,000 or something was our original contract. So they basically could have done substantially the contract with their work in process at any given time.
Yeah.
That's how many guns the American military system can actually produce when it needs to, and how many small brush fires and foreign wars that they're supporting at any given time.
Exactly.
Because Colt owned all of the FMS sales, right? That because of the license, the United States government could buy guns from anybody they wanted to in the continuous 49 states and Canada in terms of an M16, but they could not sell them overseas. So all FMS, all foreign military sales orders that came into the U.S. State Department immediately went to Colt. So they were shipping a load of guns. Hell, the Israelis were buying tens of thousands of them a year.
They were.
Oh yeah.
What do you think that
really?
What do you think that capacity compares to capacity today, for example?
Oh, if they could do 10%, I'd be surprised.
Really?
Yeah.
It really has chopped. I mean, the capacity, realistically, the capacity is in North Carolina.
Okay.
At FNMI.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it really is.
Wow.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Excuse my ignorance, Phil. What does that mean? The capacities in North Carolina. What does that mean?
Oh, well, when FNMI won the M16 contract to supply an M16 for $404 in 92, 93, 94, somewhere in there.
$404 for an M16. Does that include warranty work as well, or spare parts and all that stuff? Or
no? Well, it includes a functional warranty. The gun has to work on arrival. And because they had no idea to deal with some of the tricks of how you actually build an M16. Let's go back up here so we can actually talk. Because they had no idea how you actually build an M16 because they'd never done it before. So there were little details in how you assemble a lower receiver, how you finish some of those component parts, which in Canada, because we were licensed directly by Colt, we actually worked with Colt and we had access to their process sheets. The process sheets are how you actually build a part in a factory. They're not the technical data package. The technical data package is a drawing, a material spec, heat treat, but it doesn't give you all the little notes and all the little hard-earned pieces of information on how to actually make something run. And so we had access to the process sheets. And so the C7, we originally had the same problem that FNMI had, which is called doubling. And that is that the gun goes bang when you pull the trigger and it goes bang again when you let the trigger go on semi-automatic. Which, funnily enough, has recently been deemed to be not automatic fire. Yeah. Some of the people who are making decisions are idiots. But anyway, so in Canada, we had the same problem. But because we worked with the folks in Hartford, they went, oh, you're making parts to nominal, aren't you? Yeah. Oh, that won't work. And so what happened is there was areas of the technical data package, particularly in the hammer trigger disconnect geometry, and to a lesser extent, the lower receiver, because the pin placement and that the pins are dead parallel is also very critical to a particularly tight tolerance, actually. So we knew this immediately, and we had this problem. And it lasted all of one lot of parts. And we had it fixed by the next lot of parts because the guys from Colt said, yeah, try this. And I went, okay, great. But because FNMI did not have access to any of that, they built a whole lot of guns and they were delivered, I think they're called delivered Class C, which is fully compliant but doesn't work. So they were delivering guns to Anniston from FNMI. And FNMI... I don't know that it ever actually got to a legal thing because they said, here's the proof. Every part in this entire gun is to print. So there's something wrong with your TDP. Because if I can build every part to print, put it together, and it doesn't work, that's not on me as a subcontractor that is building to print. Even though there's a yebut in the contract that says you can put it all together, but it's still got to work. And they had a bit of a discussion, and eventually they started to accept them, and they bought a lot of spare parts from Colt, and they changed some parts, and magically the guns worked. Yay! So Colt got a few pieces out of that contract, no matter what. But yeah, that was an interesting one.
So does that mean that they weren't really like $404 guns? It's just they were delivered by FN at $404, but required some tweaking?
Correct. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, Colt had sharpened their pencils. Colt's bid on that particular order was $434. Like,
so they were in the ball.
It was a mile apart.
Yeah.
They were just convinced nobody could start up from scratch. And the other thing that they were convinced, because at the time FNMI was making the M249, and the M249 uses a forged barrel. Yeah, and somebody was making the assumption that FNMI they had to just use their hammer forge, which is a much more expensive way to build a barrel. And FNMI didn't. For that contract, they said, yeah, screw it. We're going to button these things. And button rifling is way cheaper. It lasted long enough. Made the 6,000 rounds. It kept the accuracy that it needed to. So they actually had scooped that one on Colt. If they had bid it the way Colt thought they were going to bid it, 100%, they'd have been over $434. But they didn't, and so
but still
one for the Belgians from Carolina. They stole that one, and they did a good job on it.
It's crazy that $30 made a difference, in terms of the contract.
But $30 per unit for hundreds of thousands of units.
Very true. But $30 difference between quality and having to fuck with it when you get it, and having to sink $30 per unit to get it to run.
But remember, Sean, right? I mean, these are the guys who are building the M240, right?
True.
And they built ass loads of M240s, and it's a pretty damn good machine gun.
Yeah,
I mean, I've tested and I've shot the hell out of a bunch of them, and it's a pretty damn good machine gun. They built the M249, which is a piece of crap. But it's wonderful at making empty brass if you've got a belt going into it.
Phil, you say it's a piece of crap, but I've never met somebody who had one that used it that
Mhm.
said it's a piece of shit because they love it, and it got them out of a lot of binds, right?
If you want, well, if you want to make a lot of noise, it's a
True.
great piece of kit. And if you
True.
forget it has a magazine feed on the side of it, awesome piece of kit.
True.
Right? But remember, if you put a feature on something, it's like, you buy a car, but yeah, really, there's no bottom in the trunk, so just don't use the trunk.
Don't use the trunk.
Oh, okay,
No,
but it works as a car.
But the M249 was used as a weapon to put a lot of lead downrange in a short amount of
100%.
time.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't
But
meant to
that's
do
not
it
what it was
accurately.
supposed to do.
Oh, no. What was it supposed to do?
It was supposed to provide a beaten zone of fire out to in excess of 800 meters.
Oh,
And
yeah.
its beaten zone of fire could be measured in square townships.
Exactly.
It's huge. So if you're talking about truly a support weapon that's a close support weapon for a squad, absolutely.
Yeah.
This thing will hose rounds out like there's no tomorrow. And and the thing is, contrary again to the fact that it was originally built with a 200 round belt box, what's the first thing that the US did when they put it actually into service? They put a 100 round soft bag on it.
Yeah.
Because 200 rounds is too much. I mean, everything that they did with that goofy ass thing was saying the original spec was wrong. So if you started with where they ended and said, okay, I want a 100 round gun. I want it to do 300 meters. I want it to produce an ass load of rounds. And I want it to be very reliable as a belt fed piece of kit. Yeah, it's great.
Minigun.
Zero issues. Yeah, but
try
you need
trucking
3 men and a boy to
fucking
carry the
minigun.
batteries to run a minigun in a squad.
That's right.
I just watched too many movies.
You're watching Jesse Ventura truck it through the Mexican, hillside.
I've worn that gun.
Yeah,
I have actually worn that gun.
is it pretty heavy?
And oh god, it weighs more than I do.
Man.
I mean, it's like you put this thing on, you're not going to walk. You had to be Jesse Ventura or Arnold in his heyday.
Yeah.
To carry this bloody thing. I think I exaggerate that it weighs more than I do, but I believe the gun with the backpack, if you loaded it, weighed somewhere north of 150 pounds.
Oh, for sure. At
least. It was big. I mean,
at least
start out with 8 barrels.
Can you imagine being the poor sap armorer when they're doing the Predator, when they're shooting into the jungle and they got the Jesse Ventura on the minigun? It's like, oh shit, we didn't get that. Load up the backpack again. Let's go. Then you sit there, you're loading belt after belt after belt.
Yeah.
Well, they had a couple of the magazine backpacks for it, just for that reason, so that they weren't standing around too much.
Yeah.
But I mean, getting back to the 249 again, if you looked at that gun from the end point of where they actually got, weld up the magazine port.
Yeah.
Give it a reasonable. This is the reasonable range we actually want to shoot. Awesome. It's a great gun.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have personally fired hundreds of thousands of rounds through them in barrel testing. I know how reliable they are at making empty cases.
Mhm.
I also was the poor bastard that had to try and figure out how to make a blank fire out of that thing through the magazine. I mean, it did not like to fire our short blank through the belt. I mean, that wasn't great. In fact, it was horrible. And they would not accept any of the rational fixes like a round discriminator or anything like that to try and keep, because on the belt, the original belt for the full cartridge is here. Our little short stubby blank is about this long. So there's this much room for the belt to flop back and forth as it goes across the feed tray. Imagine how bad that is for consistency.
Yeah.
And now stick that thing in a magazine where it can flop back and forth, get all out of skew, and say, well, it's still supposed to shoot out of the magazine. Not a chance in hell. I mean, it was terrible. We were doing all kinds of things. We were trying pressure points and stuff to try and make this thing work. And it was an absolute nightmare as an engineer to try and make that thing do what it did not want to do.
I have to back us up just a little bit here because we missed a question from Dave, and he was wanting to know when you were looking at that. I believe it was the Rarity Railed receiver. Are the wear marks under the? Oh, sorry, it was the one that had the milling in the barrel for the M240 for the
M203.
M203.
Oh, you mean this thing?
Yeah, he said, are the wear marks under the front sight from the stamped bipod? We're going to maximize you again here.
No.
Not me, Phil.
Oh, hold on. Leave me do the fucking, there you go.
Okay, go ahead, Phil.
No, this is just somebody was dinking around because, and I don't know why they did it. Probably this is an experimental one because we got them anyway. So this is it's an oddball barrel length. So somebody took the bayonet lug off of here and they took the sling points off of here, and that's all you're seeing there is the bare metal. So this was an engineer dinking around trying to get a gun to do something in a lab. It's no more, no less than that. It has no relevance on the actual operation of the thing in the world. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought this one because it's not a particular.
No, it's a good piece of history, especially considering, so why did you guys stick with the A2 front sight? That's my question.
Why wouldn't you?
I mean, considering
that is an excellent answer, by the way.
Well, but considering you're developing a flat top upper.
Yep.
And you're right at the cusp of sighting systems that are making that triangle post obsolete.
Sort of. Everybody thinks these things. Everybody thinks, all that shit that old guys like me should go away. Right up until I'm sitting there at 800 meters with a bunch of Brits and a bunch of Gurkhas and a bunch of Americans and their gazillion-dollar sniper rifles. And we're about to start the shoot off for the 800-meter harassing fire at Ottawa. And I pull out my C7 with a C79 sight on it. And everybody goes, "What's that?" I said, "That's my sniper rifle." And they're like, "You didn't shoot that." And the RO has a French guy in his best Franglish says, "Yes, sir, he did shoot a full score with that gun." And they're like, "You can't do that." And he goes, "Oh yeah, just a second. We're short to 5.56 Hamo for the shoot off." And
Hamo.
And we've all heard that one. And I love these. And the guy was killing himself laughing. We didn't win, but we were in the shoot off with these guys, and we made a few holes in the target.
Phil, you should.
And the reason. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say you should write a book, and you've already got your title. Your title is "You Can't Do That."
Yeah. It's true. Well, my title should be from the Dutch. Credit the Dutch for all of this, but that is impossible because anyone who's ever been to the Netherlands to try and get something done, that's the first thing you learn.
That is not possible.
That is impossible. So the guy's like, "Yeah, you can't do that." And so finally, it all comes across, and they're like, "Son of a bitch, he's actually shooting with us." And one of the reasons, Sean, and you talk about this, if you've looked through a C79, it has the post. Well, if you look at the post and you move your head back and forth, one of the things that happens is the bottom of the post does wee, and it tells you you're off the optic axis.
Yeah,
that's
you're out of level. Yeah.
Well, you're actually inducing horizontal parallax.
Right.
So we're gonna use some big words here. You're inducing horizontal parallax, which solves. So the wiggly picket fence
wiggly bits
solves one. It solves horizontal parallax. It does not solve vertical parallax.
No.
And because the post is straight up and down, you can't tell because it's straight no matter what. But if you plunk that post right in the middle of this, because you can see the ears and you can see the flat, and it's perfectly aligned because the optic sight axis is about a 1/4 inch above this. That post goes right in there, and you have a dead nuts reference to use no matter what your rear sight optic is set to. So now all of a sudden you can actually lay in accurate fire right out to the maximum range of the cartridge, which is 800 meters. And we got a full score. And I mean, I packed 5 into one, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the harassing fire target. It's 2 full standing men on a 4-foot background. You get 5 points for hitting a figure and 4 points for hitting the rest of it. And I put 5. They actually changed the rules afterwards, because I got in and I packed 5 on one guy. And they said later you actually now you have to hit both guys. But yeah, I packed them all in there. And so with this goofy little 20-inch barreled 5.56, we're shooting sniping with that scope. So why is the reason for that front sight on there? Does it have to be there? Hell no. How many people are going to be stupid enough to try and do that? Well, anybody who's desperate and needs to fire something at long range, you actually can. And it does give you on the full original rifle, because we also shot off the magazine. So the barrel was floated. It was effectively floated because we're resting the magazine. And yeah, so we plinked away with this. And because the Demaco barrels were all minute of angle barrels, and you know, I'm not going to say that I selected probably a half minute of angle barrel for the gun I took to Ottawa, but you're freaking right, I did. So we went shooting. And
so the front sight wasn't just a holdover; it was actually functional. So there was no point in getting rid of it, because you would have had to redesign a whole other gas block to get rid of it, anyways. Am I right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Well, you would have got one of those low pro type gas blocks, which we all use now under the long.
But back then, they weren't as prevalent as they were. Yeah.
Oh, nobody had thought, like, this predates IURs. It predates all of that float barrel stuff. The Americans had started experimenting with it because they shoot at Camp Perry and all bets are off. Yeah. So they were building uppers that looked like this, but that were technically floated. Right, like they bolted stuff inside of here that they hung the handguards on, and then they machined these things out here at the front sight. So this barrel was technically floated, and they put their sling on the handguard so it didn't influence the barrel. And they did all of that. But this was not something that was combat compatible. This was range gear. It was very Gucci range gear too. Made to look like a service rifle. But what we did was take a perfectly suitable service rifle. I mean, most rack rifles could have done what we did. And we learned techniques, and we passed these techniques on to the Canadian Forces. So they had a system that now could make use of that 800 meter optic and could make use of it very, very effectively. Shooting 500 yards with that thing was a cakewalk. I mean, you know, if you stuck your upper body up at 500 meters and it was a calm day and you had a Canadian out there that really didn't like you, you weren't going to have to worry about the evening meal.
Yeah, true.
Can we switch gears on you, Phil? Can we ask you about some of your Canuck guns? Because I want to make sure we have time to do that before we run out of time. Yeah, totally.
Can we? Oh, we can save the little cherry prize over on the far side for the end if you want.
Wait, you have a cherry prize? Okay, we'll
something special for you.
Make sure we get to it. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanna ask you about your Engage.
Yes, sir.
I just started. I've been filming bits and pieces with this thing for the last several months as I'm getting used to it. I just started writing the review before I go to record it and put all the video together. And I wanted to ask you and maybe get a little bit of a behind the scenes from the guy who designed
one of my girls.
You designed it. That's what I'm asking you. Okay. Tell me about that. You designed it for one of your girls, did you say?
No, I lent mine to one of our Canuck Pro staff.
Okay.
Lynn Joanne, if you follow our Northern Huntress.
I was going to say she's
on Facebook under Lynn Joanne, and I forget it's.
You guys did some social media posts.
She's
hunting with it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, she's been thundering away with an Engage for a long time, but she's such a sweetheart that one of her friends up there wanted to borrow it. And so, as you know, supporting Canuck, and I mean, I love her to death for it. In this case, she sacrificed her own hunt so that one of these people could take her Engage and go out wolf hunting up in Northern Ontario, which is a thing. So I loaned mine to her because she's going coyote hunting at her place at Oro, and they've had a hell of a time with coyotes. And she was like, oh, I'm going to go out with my, and she has a left-handed Canuck hunter, and God love her, but it's a bird gun. It's not meant to smoke coyotes. So I loaned her mine, which I have a 1.6 optic on, and a rifled choke, and I shoot score high velocity slugs out of it. And when you get to see my bear hunt, you'll get to see what those things will do to a bear, and it's impressive.
Interesting.
So anyway, yes, questions on the Engage. One of my favorite.
Yeah. What is the purpose for the Engage? Because I can only believe that every one of these designs that you've brought into Canada has a purpose, for obvious reasons. What was the 100%. Thought process behind the Engage?
Well, the Engage is a tribute to Justin Trudeau, and he's a dick.
Okay, now I want to buy. I need 3 of them now.
Okay, 100%. You need to get both camos that are available and a black one.
Yes.
Because we are not racist. We make all our guns in black.
Excellent.
So anyway, but seriously, we had brought in the MK10 and the MK12, and they're magazine fed, really heavy turkey guns, but also awesome deer guns. Anything that you would shoot with a rifle where in areas like Southern Ontario where you can't shoot a rifle. So we had brought the MK12 in, and we'd really introduced this mag-fed shotgun idea to Southern Ontario and Canada as a whole. Yeah. When they got banned, we were like, what the hell can we do? And as it turned out, we had met Ergen, who is the guy who runs he owns a factory that makes our Engage. And he had the basic ideas of this gun. And we said, oh, this may work. And some of the other guys didn't quite cotton on. But what I love about the Engage, because we just saw, I'm a big AR, C7, M16 individual. I really have been, my life is invested in those guns. I did the transition of the Canadian Forces to the C7, and it's been my professional career.
Of course.
So things about the Engage all of a sudden, and things that we could do with the Engage, leaped to mind. First thing, straight line recoil. That's number one, right? Like the MK12 was exactly the same thing, straight line recoil.
Yeah.
The Engage, straight line recoil. Second thing that I like, adjustable cheek piece. So if you're fine with the eye, but I'm 60. My eyes are not what they used to be, in spite of every available chunk of bionic surgery that is available I've had done. They still get older. And so I want an optic, and I put an optic. First thing I did was I put an optic on mine. I had a 1 3/4 to 5 on, and then I went to the 1.6, and the 1.6 is just a kick-ass optic. And so that allows me to raise the cheek piece just slightly, so I get a very comfortable cheek weld. If you've ever been in a tree stand, and all you guys have, maybe not everybody watching has been, or the other thing is turkey hunting. And the way we turkey hunt, it's a lot of run and gun. You know, if the turkey's not coming, you got an idea where he is. You want to move to try and intercept him. Yeah, so a lot of times you're essentially unprotected. You're not behind any form of camouflage. So you got to be in gun position and be there. Call if you're by yourself, or if you've got a partner that can call, you're there, but you can't move. So you got to be comfortable on the gun. And so that adjustable cheek piece, huge. Add to that oddball positions, uphill, downhill, around things. The adjustable buttstock gives you the ability to adjust that. And I find, in a tree stand, I have the thing close because of the angle. I'm not quite as close to the optic. In a ground blind or what, I end up close. So I want that stock extended some. Yeah. So the real magic in that thing is really the back end, because it provides all of the fit and all of the adjustment that we had in the MK12 and that you don't really have in all these other turkey guns. And to me, these are critical features. If I can get, I want. And so with the Engage, that's where we went. And the bonus is it's got, if you want M-lock slots, it's got them on the side. You can put something on. It's got a little piece of built-in rail. I carry a light on mine because I have a light that is a red or a white light, so I can use a red light. Getting in, and it's a little turtle, so it's not a big thing. It adds about 2 ounces to the gun, and I can just turn that thing on and off. So I've got something that I can mark my trail with, see where I'm going if I need to, and it doesn't have to be adjusted. The later ones, which you have the sling slots at the back, the push pin slots. You can either get a Canuck single point. Yeah. You can either get a Canuck single point that'll drop in there. I should send you one. So you can try it, or you can do what I do, which I have I also have a QD stud adapter on the one side of the front of mine. Yeah. So I have the sling goes into the one side and I have the light on the other side.
I actually did try it with a single point. I've got a single point sling with a QD.
Yeah. Oh, good. How did it work for you?
It worked great. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I like 2-point slings more than I like single point slings, but it was perfect. Yeah.
Part of why
if I wanted sling, then just attach the front onto the sling swivel.
Oh, you can do it on the swivel as well. Yeah. That is one reason why I put the QD cup on the back of the receiver, not on the stock, because I'm like you. I want that sling further forward than a lot of people carry a 1-pointer. I like it where it is on a M60 or a C7, C8. Yeah. Because the stock is behind that. So when it rotates up, you can keep the sling, snug so the gun rides reasonably high. But you can still bring it around and the stock is right there, and you don't have gorpy loads of sling webbing around getting into stuff. Yeah. Because that's the last thing you want when
the angle of the dangle is just right, Phil.
Yeah, that's true. It's proportional to the heat of the meat.
That's
right. And with your adjustable buttstock, if the buttstock is sitting up a little high for you, you can adjust that as well. Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's interesting. Most of the other reviews that currently exist on Facebook on YouTube about the Engage seem to approach it from a zombie apocalypse tactical kind of an approach. In fact, when Coat of Arms did their review, they did a whole zombie theme.
I know, it was awesome. That was just so cool.
It was great filmmaking for sure.
Oh, it was. The guys had an absolute ace time doing that. We had a ton of fun. And I mean, Corey and Doug, have you seen their series they did of all the shit that they go through? What they put Corey through with the dogs and everything?
No.
I love those guys. But I appreciate the fact that you guys provide, shall we say, a slightly more pragmatic approach.
And that's usually what I think of when I think of, and it was interesting because I look at other reviews before I do my review. I want to see what other people are looking at and compare it to my perspective before I write a review. And that was my biggest thing with this shotgun, is that I was looking at this shotgun and like the very first thing I did out of the box is I took a look at the magazine word is tube, but not the magazine tube. But now I can think of his block.
What? What are you talking about?
Oh, the magazine plug?
The plug. That's the word. Oh. Plug. Yeah. So the first thing I did is I took the magazine plug.
This side has apparently got an ESP connection.
Yeah, good. That's a good thing. As long as somebody does.
Take it where we can.
That's right. But I remember taking that out and I was like, okay, well, this thing's set up for hunting right out of the box. And then I sort of, I thought about like, well, okay, so we have a specifically Canadian market shotgun. It can't possibly just be a zombie apocalypse tactical shotgun because it's Canadian.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
but it's really good for that.
Oh, for sure. And then I started
thinking a lot of empty hulls.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even with the target, you know, I found that it. I don't have a rifled choke for it, I don't think, but you know, I thought that
You
you know,
don't?
Yeah,
I
it
don't think
came with
so.
chokes, did it not?
Yeah, but I don't think
It
any of
normally comes with 3 chokes.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a right, they're granted they're not all that common, and especially not all that common out west because you guys don't do as much shotgun hunting as we do maybe down here.
Yeah.
I'll you know what, Chris, I'll get one out to you along with that sling, so you can try the sling.
Let me
and try
double check
that.
and confirm before you do, but I don't think that
Okay, if you don't, man, because it does make a difference.
and now I've got the choke box in my gun range bag, and it's nowhere near me right now. But
Don't worry
otherwise,
about
I
it.
check. But anyway, what I
We'll
settled
talk
on was like,
offline on that.
okay,
For
fantastic.
your review, you should have that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
You should, yeah.
yeah. I'll definitely double check it. But
Do you
what I
have a
came,
turkey choke?
sorry.
Do you have a turkey choke?
Well, what I have are chokes that they're kind of numbered 1 through
1, 3, and 5.
I think.
Yeah, that's okay. So you got the standard choke pack. You bought it somewhere, didn't you? You didn't come to
No,
us,
no,
No, it came with it.
we got this from you.
did we? And I
Yeah.
didn't send that to you. Shit, I'm a
Well,
dumbass.
let me double
Okay,
check because maybe
don't do
I'm
it.
the dumbass. Maybe
Okay,
I'm thinking
no,
of the
no.
FD12.
No, it's
Let me interrupt. Let's put this whole discussion aside. You and I
Yeah,
can
for
talk
sure.
about that separately. We're just wasting people's time.
Well, back to the point. What I came across was like, despite everybody seeming to think that this is a tactical shotgun, it would make a fantastic hunting shotgun.
Yep.
And that was
for
kind of
sure.
what I came across. Like, it doesn't necessarily look like a hunting shotgun, but it's got everything you would want in a hunting shotgun.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even the front framework, you can rest it on anything,
Mhm.
and it doesn't bother it. Doesn't bother the barrel, doesn't bother the harmonics, doesn't bother the thing reloading.
Yeah.
And we did discover one thing early days, and if anybody has one that has this problem, we do have a factory fix. It'll cycle every 3-inch load except a Winchester Longbeard.
Oh,
And
okay.
what do we shoot turkeys with? Winchester
Winchester
freaking Longbeard, because I don't know why, but that sumbitch round works. I mean,
Okay.
I shoot turkeys at 60 yards and they don't go anywhere. I mean, now that being said, my next one will run like hell. But I mean, every turkey I've shot has gone like 2 feet,
Yeah.
and that was it. Because that ammo with the right choke is just phenomenal.
So you've got like, it wasn't cycling those well.
It
but
was
you've got a
the
fix for it.
round was just a hair. It literally is the longest 3-inch shell on the market, and it's longest by like a 16th to an 1/8 of an inch over everything else. And it was just a hair too long to cycle cleanly. Some would cycle it just fine, but some wouldn't. And so we have a fix. All of the guns that are coming in now and forward, the fix is being done at the factory.
Right.
Our guy at the factory, like I said, Ergin was just, no, we must fix this. We must do it. And I'm like, dude, we got it under control over here.
Mm-hmm.
Send us a few spares so we can just basically exchange trigger mechs for people if they come up. And it, again, it's not all of them, but anybody watching, if they haven't engaged and it has any issues with the Longbeard, get in touch with us. It is an identified issue, and we have an immediate factory fix. And I don't care when you bought the gun, we'll fix it for you.
Awesome.
Oh, look at that
Cool.
service. So I have another shotgun question for you, Phil. What Canuck shotgun would you recommend for IPSC shotgun or 3-gun?
Probably the Engage. I mean, okay, here's 2 things. What class? Are you going open class or are you going conventional pump?
Well, me and Chris, we're planning on going to an IPSC shotgun shooting Grand Prairie coming up in August, hosted by our friend Kyle. But we were looking at your shotguns, being like, which one should we use? And I've always been
going?
Sorry?
Are 2 of you going?
Yeah, me and Sean probably are going.
Yeah,
the only catch is whether I'm in Pakistan at the time or not.
That's another
That's a
story.
long shot for a shotgun.
Pakistan to Canada, yeah,
it is.
So.
It really is.
But
I'll need the rifled choke for that one.
Well, so Chris says we need to get an operator so we can do some 3-gun or IPSC style shooting, and I'm like, well, but the operator with the pistol grip and the Engage with the pistol grip isn't necessarily conducive to dual or quad loads. And I'm like looking at the Hunter platform. I'm like, maybe we could get that to work. I'm not sure. But do you have like a competition option that necessarily doesn't use a pistol grip that you could recommend for?
I mean, I've looked at it, and you can, and the pistol grip guns like that, because the pistol grip on most of our shotguns is actually set further to the rear than it normally would be on some others. You should be able to quad load that thing.
Yeah.
Well, I try.
Like, you think of the length of 2 shells from the front of that, the back of that mag tube. You've got plenty of room to quad load that thing.
And
what we're actually looking at doing, and that particular one, you can see, is cut away for the multi-load, for the quad load type thing.
You see that? Yep.
Yeah. So that's forward of that.
Well,
it's actually
look at the front end by the lock there, by the
go about 2 inches forward of that. There you go. Right there. Back a bit. Yeah, you'll see that movement right there, that it is actually cut away a little bit. We probably should cut it away more for the competition guys, and or hey, there's a market for any of your shotgun guys out there that do custom, is to open that up for quad loading, because I can't see, and I mean, I've got big hands, which helps for the quad load, but I mean is not good for dexterity around, but I've got plenty of room around that thing to do that.
And I will say, when I was testing it out, I don't do shotgun sport stuff. I've never dual loaded. I've never quad loaded in my life. The first shotgun I've ever tried to quad load on was this thing. And I did not find it bad. And as a guy who doesn't even really know how to do it. I watched the Lena Michaluk video and just tried to copy what she was doing,
Yeah. And hey, if nobody told you can't, you're probably going to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's the biggest thing that stops people doing stuff, is some other clown comes along and says you can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, just go do it, try it, see what you think. I would say that. The other one I would say, and I would almost say, for the purposes of what you guys are doing, try one with each, is our Sentry. It's a pump gun, but it's got the long tube. So you've got 8 and change rounds. So you've got 8 to go before you go, 9 with the one up the pipe to go, versus 6 or 7 in the Engage. So try that. That would be my thought. And of course, I'm pushing you to the 2 guns that I'm probably closest to in our line, because the Sentry was also mine. Ian, our sales guy, came up with the Commander, and it's been a fantastically popular gun for us. But I just, for the size of it, I wanted a couple extra rounds. Yeah, there's the Sentry. Hello, baby.
Hello,
and that
baby.
one comes in 3 different colors.
It's
nice sights on it.
It would have to be OD
sight.
green.
Yeah.
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 Why?
Okay.
So
if you guys need one for that, we can help you out. And then everybody in the crowd will like me helping you out, because then you got a gun to raffle.
That's right.
Exactly.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
All right. On.
Okay. Let me ask you about a couple of other things let me ask you about a couple of other things in the Odell lineup. So the first one that I thought that was really interesting, that I'd have never heard anyone talk about, is, let me just bring it up here.
The Maverick.
The Maverick. Exactly. Right there.
Yeah. What a sweet gun.
410 lever action shotgun. Tell us about how this came about.
Well, funnily enough, the guy who runs the factory over there is a hoot. And he actually went to school. He went to trade school in Barrie, went to Georgian College. So of everybody that we deal with, his English is really, really, really good. And we ended up talking one time, and he was doing some stuff with another group that will remain nameless, but has fortunately gone out of business recently, spectacularly. So they ended up without a home. And so he called me and said, hey, I'd really, really like to continue selling in Canada. And we went, hey, we've seen your gun. We'd really like to represent you. Can we do something? And he went, yeah, 100%. I said, okay, well, we need to make a clean shift to this being a Canuck gun, which means we needed to be a Canuck. And we'd actually thought about a lever gun 2 years before. So we already had the name Maverick reserved. The parts numbers were already in our SKU list. So it was just a matter of working with owner, and he's now building them for us. And they are an absolutely gorgeous gun. He does a phenomenal job. He's got a fun little product that's going to be coming out, which you guys are just gonna kill yourselves laughing when you see this thing. But yeah, owner does a great job. We also have proper sling swivels for the gun, and we have both matte and glossy finished sight bases. And the sight bases are really well done, because if you notice you may not if you haven't seen it, but on the top of the receiver bridge right at the front, there's 2 holes already drilled. He drills and taps every gun at the factory for a sight base. And so you just you take the rear sight out, slide in a dovetail blank that has 2 holes drilled into it, set the mount down, put the 4 screws in, tighten everything up. Works absolutely fantastic.
You have a dovetail mount.
And now you've got a Picatinny mount that reaches back. It doesn't go over the receiver because it's a 92, 94 kind of vertical eject. So you don't want to jam that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is an absolutely gorgeous gun. Shoots now, it's 410 by 2.5, doesn't take a 3, but that kind of keeps the receiver proportional. Looks nice. We had many discussions about whether we should stretch it out or not. But it's what he's making, and it works really, really well. And it's
I love the loading gate on it.
And now we've got some of the nickel guns in, and they're pretty sweet. We had the matte and we had the glossy finish ones. We got nickel, and we're gonna have the titanium, which is kind of like that yellow boy receiver. They'll be coming in the new year. And the other thing is that we are hoping, and we should have coming in, is the next upgrade in the line is that they will all have mobile chokes. And we have a secret upgrade coming after that, which we really hope we can pull off. But I'm not even going to talk about it.
It has nothing to do with 45 long Colt?
Wouldn't have not a damn thing to do with 45 long Colt. And everything I have is crossed.
Awesome. That sounds amazing, actually. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, well, and like I said, owner is a really good guy. He's an engineer, engineering tech. Well, actually, he is a Turkish, the equivalent of a professional engineer. He took his first training here in Canada, then he went back to university in Turkey, and he's got their equivalent of a professional engineer's designation over there. Yeah. So he loves doing this stuff, and he's a character.
I just see the Maverick as just like this sleeper lever
Wade,
gun that
you
everyone
kill
would
me.
love.
You stab me right to my very heart.
Yeah.
So Wade on the Facebook, so obviously taking a poke at Phil. Phil, do you have any plans for a high power?
Dude, fairest question ever. We had a high power. We had a stainless steel high power. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Some miserable SOB in the US went to our partner company, and some idiot at the top of the partner company signed up an exclusive agreement for 7 years, so they can't make a high power for us.
No way.
We're, I think, 3 years into it. So yeah, it's goofy. And they've yet to, well, we think you might have noticed that there's been a couple of announcements in the US about high powers from a major supplier of
cough, Springfield Armory, cough.
Well, they're one, but there's another one too. That's, not a Browning, but more like a brown hell. But yeah, so they finally kind of got this shit together. So we will continue, and hopefully, if it is the Brunels guys, I know some of the fellas there, and maybe we can get ours back. Up here. But yeah, because
no matter what, you're looking at 4 more years.
Yeah, because we re-engineered a pile of things on that gun for them. There was a bunch of stuff that was not working, and we re-engineered it for them. Part of this, I mean, they were breaking slides at the front. Wait a minute. Their extractors were terrible.
You're saying the quality of a product out of Turkey wasn't?
Well, hang on a sec.
Well,
I'm more interested in.
I mean, hey, give them their credit, and you got they make our 1911s, our Canuck 1911s, and our Canuck 1911s are freaking awesome,
phenomenal.
Guns. Yeah, I mean, a number of people in the States have reviewed build your own build your own 1911s. And they've said, two manufacturers come up all the time. One is Rock Island, and the other is our partner in Turkey, and which used to come in through European American Army, EAA. And so the guns and what they can do is good. What they got caught in was some of how the high power had evolved, even at Browning.
Yeah.
In Belgium and in Portugal, they'd evolved some of how they made things in not good ways. And they were certainly not as good as an Inglis. I mean, hell, there's no Belgian Browning that's ever been as good as an Inglis.
No.
And that there's reasons for that.
Canadian made.
There's actual technical, but there's technical reasons for it. We narrowed the tolerances on the entire gun. Our material specs have always been higher. The things like how we built the extractor on the gun always were it just made a better gun. And that's what that is. But when they went and all the patents died, and so they started to build the Brownings in Turkey, they adopted some of those things. And of course, everybody's got these value engineers and frickin' accountants, and they're always trying to shave a dollar here, shave a dollar there. And we caught them at it, and we found out solid reasons, and we could look to we go, did you guys change this part around about serial number so and so? Maybe. And it eventually got to the point that they were straight with us. And so we went through the gun soup to nuts, and we fixed a pile of things for them. And the guys were good about it. I mean, this is not like they were no, they were, yeah, we've been having that problem in other areas, and we didn't know particularly why. Oops. Well, here's somebody who's come back with an actual why. And sometimes when we work with a company that has engineering in the name, there's a reason why it has that. And I say this not in any way to belittle or chagrin other people. It's what I do, and it's what we do here. And there are other places that do that. There's no doubt. We don't have a unique a patent on that. We just happen to be careful about it. And the things that we do, we bring that engineering angle to it. And so we did this with the high power, and the last of the Canadian made the Canuck high powers they're so nice. They're such a lovely gun. I'm not a stainless steel guy, but I'll tell you, our stainless high power
through and through. Anyway,
and have you seen our Canuck Commander stainless?
Mm-hmm.
The Commander stainless.
Yeah.
No,
Pull
I
it
haven't.
That is a sexy piece of kit. Ask Lynn Joanne to do a video, because she got the last one we had in Canada until the next batch, which should be coming anytime now.
You're talking about the Commander 12 gauge?
Commander stainless 9. Pardon?
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the Commander shotgun. It was like a stainless shotgun. Okay. Now I'm sorry.
All right. We're talking handguns, brother.
Yeah, I'm just on the drugs. It's okay. Carry on.
Look at that.
Okay. Yeah. And the Commander, oh God. If you like those, Sean, you got to get a hold of one of those things, brother.
I've been trying for a year.
Yeah. And we do the original Commander was in 9mm, right? It was an Air Force gun, and Colt made them for them. But we do it in 9 and 45. So all you leather-necked aficionados that anything that doesn't start with a 4 doesn't work. God help the 40 guys. But yeah, 45, absolutely. And it's a great gun in 45. And it's a delightful gun in 9mm, and you can shoot a lot more in Canada because we don't shoot people with our guns.
Help me out here. What is the difference between the Commander and the standard 1911?
3/4 of an inch on the barrel. Everything else is identical.
So here you can see
the slide is slightly shorter. You can see the slide length. Yep.
Yeah. That's what I saw. Obviously, I just didn't know.
Nope, you're 100%. And that the original command, like some of the go faster bits and pieces we've got on there, the skeleton hammer, the skeleton trigger, they kind of started to come in more with the Commander when it was introduced. But there'd been farting around people with this, doing this to 1911s from the 50s. even earlier than that probably. But post-war, it started to expand, and then early days of, I think in Vietnam, it was in 60s, late 50s, 60s. They chopped it. And then the latest one, of course, was the officer's ACP, when they went right back to, I think, a 3.5-inch barrel, which is just slightly prohib for us. But the Commander at 4.25 inches is magic. And so we bring those in, and boy, in 9mm, that's a really nice gun to shoot. It's nice in 45, but it's nice in 9mm, and it's cheaper.
No style sights.
Awesome. Yeah, they're solid. The sights are good. They're not fancy, but boy, they're really nice. If you're doing IDPA type of stuff, IPSC, those are nice, slick sights. They come out of a holster, really, really nice. We have not gone to an optics ready yet because we're still farting around with that. And I don't know if we ever will, because it's a 1911, and 1911 and optics just seems like that might be wrong.
Yeah, it seems the blasphemy.
Well, yeah, Jeff Cooper might come down and smack us around the head. But
that was the fifth rule, by the way. That was his lesser known fifth rule. Thou shalt not put optics on the 1911.
Yeah, and the other thing that was lesser known about Cooper, he had absolutely no issues against point shooting. I mean, you should be able to point shoot a gun. I mean, that thing should be engaged as soon as it clears leather, or Kydex today. But yeah, and I'll tell you, that thing, that little Commander comes out fast, and it points like absolute death. It is wonderful.
Yeah, Commanders point like a son of a bitch. I love them.
Well, the 1911 does too, but it's just that shorter barrel, it clears leather just that bit faster. You've now got everything nice about a 1911, that crisp trigger pull, the fact that it's such a beautiful actual metal gun, and it's in something that's the size of a Glock.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And it looks pretty too.
Oh man. Like I said, I'm not a stainless guy, but that gun in stainless, it brings out the engraving, and the lines are crisp, and I really, really like it. It was the same with the finish that the guys did on the stainless high powers. Man, I wish you'd have told me you're going to ask this question. I'd have had a couple here.
If I thought of my questions beforehand, I would have given you a full list. I promise.
Well, if we ever get to do this again, please send the list, and I'll try.
We can definitely do.
We'll definitely send a list.
Yeah.
If you're not on a list, you're not trying, right?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you one last question. And recently we had Ken Thiessen on, and he was talking about black powder. And I've always said that, I'm going to get into black powder so I can hunt when there's not snow on the ground. I don't know anything about black powder guns, but I noticed that you have 3 different models. You have the Wolf, you have the Acura version 2, and you have what the heck was it? Optima.
Yeah. Well, we also have the Paramount.
Oh, and that's a black powder rifle too?
Oh yeah. Yeah. The Paramount's black powder.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to say sort of. They're CVAs, and we can get them for anybody who's really determined to buy something from us, but there are other alternates for them.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's an ongoing discussion, because they're a BPI gun, the same as Bergera is. We are exclusive on Bergera. Every legal Bergera in Canada comes through us. Not every Bergera in Canada got here legally. That's another story. People think they did, but they don't necessarily. Well, the U.S. on manufacturers register their export serial numbers, and you can export any gun from the U.S. if you go through certain channels. But as a manufacturer of a new gun, you can get into trouble if that gun happens to end up in another country and they find out about it. Right. Being a hunting rifle, being a black powder, they don't care. Black powder rifles aren't even considered guns for the purpose of the law on exports. But for Bergeras, it can be a thing. And it comes to us. We discover when people have been doing that, because if there's ever a warranty question, first thing we do is, how did this thing get here? You can ask Terry Korth about that with Loophole, because Terry he invested a ton of dough, and God love him for doing it. He invested a ton of dough in a true optics repair facility out there in Okotoks. And Terry doesn't love me for some reason, but that's okay. He's a great guy, and he's done a phenomenal job for Canadians to bring true support of loophole products to Canada. But every once in a while, he'll get one comes in, and it's one of the loophole tactical ones, and it's like, oh, didn't buy that through us, did you? Maybe. and because that's a munition, right? It's a controlled item. Well, congratulations. Your scope gets sent right back to Beaverton, and you can argue with Beaverton to try and get it home because it didn't leave the U.S. legally. Yeah, if it's and correct for him. That's exactly what should happen. Sometimes there's little exceptions. It's been here for like 35 years, and your dad exported it because he moved legally. He emigrated. Yeah. I mean, there are certain times when they go, yeah, that was fine, no problem. We know where it is now. But people who are intentionally gray marketing stuff in, especially with things like that can be an issue because you can have controlled items and reticles are a big one. We had a pile of stuff because Trigicon is right on the Windsor border. We had a pile of problems over the years with Trigicons coming in that have reticles that were never supposed to leave the U.S. And they're supposed to be sent right back. And that's fair because that's you've got people like Terry, like me, that are setting up facilities to bring these things in, going through the paperwork, doing it legally. I'm not gonna skate that, and I'm sure as hell not gonna ask Terry to skate that for somebody when he's got a multi-million-dollar business that he's supporting with the Canadian government.
Well, it sounds fair. I mean, if you have to spend all of the resources to do it properly, it only stands to reason that everyone should have to do that. Yep.
And it's why some U.S. companies who can't figure out why should you have a single point of distribution in Canada die because you just trying to bring some of these crazy things up here is not the easiest. And it is easy. You put it in your trunk or you just mail it or somebody sends it to you. And that happens. And 9 times out of 10, it gets through. But it's when a warranty question comes up or something like that, then all of a sudden the awkward questions get asked and they're genuinely awkward. Whereas, when I import something or when Terry imports something or, the other guys import something, Wolverine, like they're doing Schmidt-Bender stuff. They have all the serial numbers. We keep track of that. So we know what came in legally.
And I imagine when the awkward questions do get asked, it can probably end up spending a lot more money than it would just to do it properly in the first place.
Yeah, really. Not for me. Yeah, sorry, I didn't import that. I'm done. And now, the person is dealing with the U.S. manufacturer, the U.S. State Department. Because optics are dealt with differently in Canada, the RCMP and Infernal Affairs really don't care that much. But it's definitely can be an issue on the U.S. side because they take their proprietary technology fairly seriously.
And exporting, yeah.
Well, they'll export it, but they want it done a particular way.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
And they want to know that this batch of 100 serial numbers went to Canada. No, okay. And the other side of that is you also sign off to an obligation and you pass that down that they don't leave Canada without their permission. Again, they're not unreasonable about it. I've had stuff here for a period of time and going someplace else. There's a process, takes about a month, and you get an amended export license, which says, license to go to a third country and everything's good.
They just want to know what's where and how.
Yeah, because it is their technology. They actually paid to develop it. So guess what? They feel a bit of ownership. And they actually have ownership because
stands to reason.
They did pay.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people get excited, but the U.S. taxpayer paid for this, and they're protecting the U.S. taxpayers' rights.
Yeah, makes sense. We're a little bit over 2 hours here.
Yeah.
Do we want to touch on LV or do we want to call it a night here?
Oh, let's save it for the new year.
We're going to save it for the new year.
Just
why don't we just say Las Vegas?
Oh,
no, I just let the whole
Vegas,
thing
baby.
Well, no, I really hope you guys are hell. I hope I'm able to make it down there.
Phil, if you don't make it down there, then I'm going to be really upset.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Because we're looking forward to seeing you guys down there. And
are you worried about COVID restrictions or?
Yeah,
I'm worried about COVID. Stupid.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
COVID is a non-issue. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not going to get into all of that, but it's a non. I haven't seen a freaking case of COVID around here that actually was more than for a year and a half.
Have you traveled much since 2020 or since the beginning?
I've been across the border all the time.
Okay.
I cross the border to pick up in the U.S. all the time. I am a regular travel. I'm a commercial driver because me and my pickup truck go across the border in Buffalo and pick up a bunch of stuff. We've been down for a couple of meetings. It's the Americans are not a problem.
No. Yeah. We're the problem. It's coming back.
Oh yeah, it's dumber than dog shit. The what we put on people. Now I hear that the Americans are getting they've has the virus happened? Yes, our response, stupid virus, has infected the Americans.
Yeah,
and some of the stuff.
Well, Biden's doing his best.
In Vegas.
He's doing his best to make it. Biden's doing his best to make it a pain in the ass for everybody.
Well, he's discovered that making it a pain in the ass pisses off people who aren't Democrats because they don't care anyway. They're just going to have their parties on airplanes and little islands in the Caribbean, and life is good for them.
I flew to Brazil in October, and we were supposed to come back through Newark. And when we went to board our plane, we were just flat out denied because of Biden. For 6 more days, Biden had his temporary order that anybody entering Brazil or coming from Brazil can no longer travel through the United States. So we ended up having to change and go through Panama, and then from Panama straight to Toronto. But we were in like just 10 days earlier. We went through Newark on the way down.
Do you actually see any problems down there?
No, nobody cares.
No. I have a friend of mine who runs a company down there, and he's been back and forth, and he said the same thing. He said there's a lot of excitement, but
have you ever been to Rio? No. Have you been to Rio?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, the touristy areas, you go to the Sugarloaf, you go Corcovado, where the Christ the Redeemer statue is, all of the touristy shit. They've got, the typical armed security guards with their Imbrel handguns telling you to put your mask up. But we stayed in Baja, which is a less touristy part of town. Nobody gives a shit. If you're not in a touristy part, nobody cares.
Yeah. And the States, like I said, go down there now. It's gone. New York, they don't care. I mean, we were in Ohio, in a part of Ohio, which was a university area. They're all like, "Wee!" But the real people who actually understand paying taxes and stuff, they didn't care. Yeah.
And somehow Florida is not a land of zombies, despite the fact that they haven't had a masking order since the first 2 weeks of the pandemic.
I was going to say, hasn't Biden declared DeSantis a zombie by definition?
Yeah, but that's only because DeSantis is coming for his job.
Well, yeah. 2028, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting thing.
It's going to be an interesting midterm, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to Orlando in March, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Well, enjoy yourself.
Oh, definitely. But I'm going to enjoy myself in Vegas first.
Yeah, I was in Texas, and it's a non-issue in Texas, in spite of some of the medical people were like, "Oh yeah, this is a terrible thing." You actually talk to the paramedics that work out, and they're like, "Yeah, no, drunk driving is still the biggest issue we have."
Yeah, exactly.
It is what it is. And that's a thing.
Well, I guess we'll just let, as far as the listeners are concerned, we are going to be going to Las Vegas in January. We're going to be going to SHOT Show, and we're going to be doing as much as we can to let you guys know how fun it is. And
starting with our reception after Range Day.
That's right. We're really looking forward to it, and the reason that we're going is because you invited us, and we're very thankful for that, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So for all of our listeners, look forward to some great video content, because I plan to video the whole goddamn thing.
Well, and we may or may not do a live show every night.
We'll have to do a couple of live shows. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Even if it's just a daily check-in.
15 minutes, half an hour. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah,
100%. I'm going to be bringing all of our recording equipment and our audio equipment. So
It's like the swag Olympics down there.
yeah.
Who can come back with the most swag?
This guy.
I don't know. I see Sean there. He's got some serious pockets going.
Yeah. Well,
so many pockets. Like, anyway,
that's funny.
But no, yeah, it's going to be a party. It's going to be a good time, and thank you.
Totally
I
looking
appreciate
forward
it. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, thanks for coming on, man. We went way overboard, but that's okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally okay.
Just a fun
My
conversation.
pleasure. I'm sorry.
No, do not ever apologize, please.
And I didn't get to ask my reloading question. Shit.
I know.
Oh.
We'll have to have you back.
You said you had some sort of secret thing to show before we signed off.
Yeah.
What's that? Sean, how do we highlight?
Anybody ever seen one of these?
What the fire truck is that? Is that a polymer bullpup?
That's the precursor to the Enfield SA80.
Yeah, that's
Really?
an actual EM2. It's
EM2.
the second one. There was the EM1, and then this is the EM2. Well, you know what? My dad actually worked on and built part of this particular gun. So next time we come on, we'll bring this back and we'll actually have a conversation about it.
We'll talk about it. That is a nifty looking rifle, man.
It is a beautiful rifle, and I don't know. You can't really. Hang on a minute. Can we?
Be very, very careful.
Don't break it.
I'm trying to see if we can
scuff it or.
That's not a QD cup in there, is it? That can't be.
No, it's not.
Okay.
That's a selector.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to look. If you could read right there, I don't know if you can. You read.
Look at
right
all
there?
the stamped on it, though. Holy Dinah!
No, we
Can you
can't
read
see
that?
that.
No, I can't read it.
Unfortunately, we can't.
It says number 1.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's why you have
it's-
such a high opinion of that
Yeah.
of the SA80.
That's actually number 1. So, anyway, guys,
Oh.
yeah. So we'll save that for next time. And
How
we'll have
long
some
is
fun
that
with
freaking barrel?
We can't end now. Shane on the Facebook says neat. That's in 280 British, correct?
7mm high velocity, but yeah, basically the same thing. There was
Oh,
also a 280 30 version, and yeah, next time I'll bring some of the cartridge, some of the drill rounds that I've got, so we can have a look at it. But yeah,
Cool.
that's that we could have had that in the 50s. But again, the cartridge was not invented here, so it has to be 308. It had some other issues, but this was a beautiful bullpup design. Wing, it's the bolt uses wing type locking lugs. Select fire. It's just kind of cool. And this one was actually made in Canada because we made a run of them as kind of a production confirmation for the Brits. So we made a run of, I think there was 10 that there were officially 10. There was about 15 total altogether that were built. Not all of them were finished, and some of them were destroyed or parts of them were damaged in production. But yeah, my dad was a toolmaker at Canadian Arsenals at the time, so they were making these in the tool room. And so there's bits and pieces. I know he built the bolt for all of them. And
imagine just swiping the number 1 gun from the.
Well, they sold them. It was legal in the 50s and the 60s. There was no big issue. It was like, yeah, these are surplus to need. So, okay, well, we'll sell them. Wow. And so they did. So, there were Canadians who bought them, and one guy got number 1. And yeah,
some guy did.
Yeah, and some guy ended up with it.
Yeah,
and
some random dude.
Happy.
Nice.
So what?
Yeah,
that looks like a really long barrel. What length barrel is that?
20 inches.
It's only a 20 inch.
Okay. Well, in a gun that's significantly shorter than an M16, that's pretty good. It might even be longer than that. I'd have to check. It's 10. Yeah, it's pretty darn close to 20 inches.
It just looks like a long bullpup. Yeah.
Well, no, you're right. It is. The chamber goes back here. It's 24. Sorry, it's a 24-inch barrel.
24-inch barrel.
You could shorten it 100%.
Sure, of course.
But,
yeah.
Remember at the time, how long was an FN rifle?
Long,
pretty freaking long.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long rifle.
So we're comparing era to era.
You compare the two, it's like 12 to 14 inches shorter than an FN.
Yeah.
And you could have shortened it considerably more than it was if you wanted to. You could easily have, made that a 20-inch barrel, shortened up the front end a little bit, and it would still work perfectly fine.
Very cool.
But yeah, so next time, first, when you guys have space in your schedule for me to come and visit you guys again, we'll put the 280 on.
Yeah, you have definitely secured your spot.
We're gonna have you on tomorrow. Yeah. Anyway,
I have to talk to the residential sergeant major about that one.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Sean, we do have one more bill to pay, or a couple more bills to pay before we sign off here.
Okay, fire away.
Okay, I'll go for it. You didn't do call sign 66, correct?
No, I did not.
All right. Well, Call Sign 66 is a veterans-based training organization founded to facilitate multi-generational passage of information, ballistic applications R&D, and shooter development. The omnidirectional passage of information is key to the community's success and growth, as our organizational philosophy is such that we all have something to offer. Welcome to the Brotherhood. For more info, go to callsign66.ca.
Nice.
You can check out our show at facebook.com/FFP podcast and leave a review to let us know how we're doing. Just punch 5 stars. No comments, no nothing.
That's right.
It pisses Sean off, so just do it.
Yeah.
Also, if you like the content, please leave a like on the page and share so we can spread the wealth. I'm also going to say, if you're still listening to us, I know it's the end of the show. A lot of people sign off at the end of the show, but there's still a good number of you here. Hey, click like on what you're watching right now.
Yeah.
It really helps others see the show as well. So, or click a heart. That's cool. Click a surprised face, whatever. Just click
we had
something.
7 readings of 5 and no reviews, or 7, like 7 guys said 5. What are you doing?
They're just going to keep doing it. Just do it.
Say, you guys are awesome. Period. Go.
You can email questions as well.
It's better than 1 star and no review.
Well, now that's the truth.
Well, no, not necessarily. I would rather get a 1-star review than nothing.
No, because
So-
someone's going to give us a
review is good.
Yeah.
You guys do a really good job, and if you get 5 stars and they got it's awesome.
Yeah. Take it.
Don't nobody give us 1 star outside of one guy outside of the show who will not leave the thing anyway.
Don't tempt Jens. Anyway, you can email questions to us, whether you need long-range shooting advice, mental toughness, or self-defense coaching, or technical questions. We would love to hear from you. info@ffpp.ca.
Yep.
And finally, our show is also brought to you by ScoutVid. ScoutVid is an interactive platform for youth of all ages to showcase their talent. From profiles to highlight reels, we put you front and center in the hockey world. Whether you're just getting into hockey or looking to make an impression on a junior club, ScoutVid gives you the tools to get noticed. Welcome to the show. Find them on... No, that's the wrong one. That's the other one.
Oh, sorry.
Find
Where
them
is she?
I'm Batman.
Batman.
Swear to me. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, and on their website at scoutvid.com.
Also, a massive thank you to all of our sponsors. Without you, we wouldn't have a show in the first place. Shane and Steve, Miles, Gary, Cappy, Duncan, Rob, Doug and Niza, Warren and Scoutfit, and last but certainly not least, Mr. Philip Odell. I appreciate everything you've done to help the show. Thank you, sir.
This was a lot of fun,
pleasure,
Phil.
man.
Thanks for being on here tonight. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
It's
so
not,
cool.
not quite
I've
as fun as
so
throwing darts through the questions, but hey, we'll talk you through it.
How many times do I get to say to Larry Vickers, we busted it before you, buddy? Yeah.
So our tagline on the show used to be "Live, Laugh, Reload." Now the tagline on the show is "We scooped Larry Vickers."
Yeah.
There you go. Hey,
no
you scooped the world, man.
Yeah.
You guys scooped the world.
Well, thank you for letting us scoop the world and providing some really cool history. And the coolest part about it is that this is cool history for one of the most popular, if not the most popular rifle in the world. But it's Canadian history, and that makes it even better.
It's certainly the most popular civilian owned firearm in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just sitting
no
here,
question
listening
there.
to the history, listening to the development, learning a whole piss ton of info tonight, Phil. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. This was a party and 2 hours and 18 minutes and 53 seconds, and we're still going. So
Yeah,
this is awesome. We got to have you back. We got to have you on more regularly, and this is awesome. So right on.
And I want to ask my reloading question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
No, not tonight. Next time. I'm not.
Oh.
I'm not stressing it anymore.
Kurt's here. Kurt's here. Kurt and Jens have been sitting there silently.
We're just lurking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole time.
All right, go ahead. We got time. Ask him.
Yeah. Fire away.
No. This is not a 30-second question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Well,
No, but it is in fact it's a serious question that I went through, and I had to try and sort out myself, and I'd really like their input on how they would go about solving the problem.
We'll
Well,
have
then
to talk.
we're looking at a
air.
January show then.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Coming at you live from the Hilton, Las Vegas.
That's right.
That's right. Okay.
The Hilton. We're
staying.
We're staying at the frickin' Tropicana, man.
Tropicana.
Cool.
Which is a Hilton property.
We're all hopefully going to be at TI on Monday, and we'll all be at the Stratosphere. Hopefully, nobody's got a thing about heights.
Oh, definitely. I'm terrified of heights. So
Excellent. We'll put you on the roller coaster on the top of the Stratosphere.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Do they have a glass bottom out there?
We'll find
I
out.
think they do on one of the floors, but I don't know.
Okay, we'll have to get them out on the glass.
I will not be
bottom
going
anyway.
on there. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah,
That's not for me,
not,
guys.
It's not
Anyway,
high on my list either.
Hey, if you guys like this, we're gonna start recording every Friday at 7 p.m. Saskatchewan time. So wherever you are,
Which
in
is
the
Central
world.
Standard Time.
Yeah. So
All year round.
Never changes.
that's
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
come and watch us live 7 p.m. CST Saskatchewan on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, and we're good to go. So awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. See you
Have a
next
great
week.
night, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks, Phil.
It was a pleasure.
See ya.